Fatherland videos. Tonight we have a mythology read from the American Diaspora, specifically our brothers and sisters in the continent, in the country of Egypt, or should I say Kemet, the lower Nile Valley region people. Let's see what tonight's book read has to say, our brothers and sisters in Kemet. Tonight's book read is dedicated to the beautiful sisters in the American diaspora. Know your special powers and your special abilities, and always how special and how valuable you are. First, we'll take a look in the book, Aztecs, Myths, and Tales. Queen Mu, a 19th century French-American archaeologist and antiquarian, was that a certain hollow among the ruins of Chichen Itza had been built by a Queen Mu, a Maya princess who, after the tragic fate of Atlantis, fled to Egypt, where she founded the ancient Egyptian civilization. Egyptian Myths and Tales. For by Dr. Chris Norton and Flame Tree Publishing. We're here on page 151. The legend of Heru-Behutet and the winged disc. The text of this legend is cut in hieroglyphics on the walls of the temple of Edfu in Upper Egypt. A certain portions of it are illustrated by large bas reliefs. Both texts and reliefs were published by Professor Neville in his volume entitled Myth des Horreurs. A German translation by Bruckich appeared in Alberdagen der Göttinger Academic, and another by the Weidmann in Die Religion. The legend, in the form in which it is here given, dates from the Ptolemaic period, but the matter which it contains is far older, and it is probable that the facts recorded in the fragments of actual history, which the Egyptians of the late period tried to piece together in chronological order. We shall see, as we read of the late period, tried to piece together that the writer of the legend, as we have it, was not well acquainted with Egyptian history, and that in this account of the conquest of Egypt has confounded one god with another and mixed up historical facts with mythological legends to such a degree that his meaning is frequently uncertain. The great fact which he wished to describe is the conquest of Egypt by an early king who, having subdued the peoples in south, advanced northwards and made all the people whom conquered submit to his yoke. Now, the king of Egypt was always called Horus, and the priests of Edfu, wishing to magnify their local god, Horus of Behutet or Horus of Edufu, attributed to him the conquest of this human and probably pre-dynastic king. We must remember that the legend assumes that Ra was still reigning on the earth, though he was old and feeble and had probably deputed his power to his successor, whom the legend regards as his son. In the 363rd year of his reign, Ra Harmachis, i.e. Ra on the horizon, was in Nubia with his army, with the intention of destroying those who had conspired against him. Because of their conspiracy, Au, Nubia is called Aua to this day. From Nubia, Ra Harmachis sailed down to the river of Edfu, where Heru-Behutet entered his boat and told him that his foes were conspiring against him. Ra Harmachis is answer addressed Heru-Behutet as his son and commanded him to set out without delay and slay the wicked rebels. Then Heru-Behutet took from the form of the great winged disc and at once flew up into the sky, where he took the place of Ra, the old sun god. Looking down from the height of heaven, he was able to discover the whereabouts of the rebels, and he pushed them into the form of the winged disc. Then he attacked them with such violence that they became dazed and could neither see where they were going nor hear. The result of this being that they slew each other, and in a very short time they were all dead. Thoth, seeing this, told Ra that because Horus had appeared as a great winged disc, he must be called Heru-Behutet, and by this name Horus was known ever after at Edfu. Ra embraced Horus and referred with pleasure to the blood which he had shed, and Horus invited his father to come and look upon the slain. Ra set out without the goddess Ashtoreth to do this, and they saw the enemies lying fettered on the ground. The legend here introduces a number of curious derivations of the names of Edfu, and which are valueless and which remind us of the derivations of the place names propounded by ancient Semitic scribes. In gladness of heart, Ra proposed a sale of the Nile, but as soon as his enemies heard that he was coming, they changed themselves into crocodiles and hippopotami, so that they might be able to wreck his boat and devour him. As the boat of God approached them, they opened their jaws to crush it. But Horus and the forest came quickly on the scene and defeated their purpose. The followers of Horus here mentioned are called in the text Mesnuil, blacksmiths or workers in metal, and they represent the primitive conquerors of the Egyptians who were armed with metal weapons, and so were able to overcome with tolerable ease the indigenous Egyptians, whose weapons were made of flint and wood. Horus and his blacksmiths were provided with iron lances and chains, and Bane cast the chains over the monsters in the river. They drove down their lashes into their snouts and slew 651 of them. Because Horus gained victory by means of metal weapons, Ra decreed that a statue of Horus, should be placed at Edfu and remain there forever, and a name was given to the town to commemorate the great battle that had taken place there. Ra applauded Horus for the mighty deeds which he had been able to perform by the means of spells contained in the book of the slaying of the hippopotamus. Horus then associated himself with the goddess Uetech and Nekbet, who were in the form of serpents, and taking his place as the winged disc on the front of the boat of Ra, destroyed all the enemies of Ra, whosoever he found them. When that remnant of the enemies of Ra thought they were likely to be slain, they doubled back to the south, but Horus pursued them and drove them down into the river. Before him, as far as Thebes, one battle took place at Texhemet and another at Dendera, and Horus was always victorious. The enemies were caught by chains, thrown over by them, and the deadly spears of the blacksmith drank their blood. After this, the enemy fled to the north and took refuge in the swamps of the delta and in the shallows of the Mediterranean Sea, and Horus pursued them thither. After searching in the shallows for them for 4 days and for 4 nights, he found them, and they were speedily slain, 142 of them, and the male hippopotamus was dragged on to the boat of Ra, and there Horus dug out their entrails and hacked their carcasses in pieces, which he gave to the blacksmiths and the gods who formed the crew of the boat of Ra. Before dispatching the hippopotamus, Horus leaped onto the back of the monster as a mark of his triumph, and to commemorate the event of the priest of Hebben. The town wherein these things happened was called Who Have Standeth on the Back Ever After. The end of the great fight, however, was not yet. Another army of enemies appeared by the north lake, and they were marching towards the sea, but terror of Horus smote their hearts, and they fled and took refuge in Materet Ament, where they allied themselves with the followers of Set, the arch-fiend and the great enemy of Ra. Thither Horus and his well-armed blacksmiths pursued them, and they came up to them in the town called Heru-Behutet, which derived in the name of 2 combatants, or 2 men. Horus and Set, a great fight took place. The enemies of Ra were defeated with great slaughter, and Horus dragged 381 prisoners on the boat of Ra, where he slew them and gave their bodies to his followers. Then Set rose up and cursed Horus because he had slain his allies, and he used such foul language that Thoth called him Ni-ha-ha-ha, stinking face, and this name clung to him ever after. After this, Horus and Set engaged in a fight which lasted a very long time, but at length Horus drove his spear in the neck of Set with such great violence that the fiend fell headlong to the ground. Then Horus smote with the club the mouth which had uttered such blasphemies and fettered him with a chain. In this state, Horus drug Set into the presence of Ra, who ascribed great praise to Horus, and special names were given to the place of Horus at the high priest of the temple of commemoration of the event. When the question of the disposal of Set was being discussed by the gods, Ra ordered that he and his fiends should be given over to Isis and her son Horus, who were to do what they pleased with them. Horus promptly cut off the heads of Set and his fiends in the presence of Ra and Isis, and he dragged Set by his feet through the country with his spear sticking in his head and neck. After this, Isis appointed Horus and Behutet to be protecting deity of her son Horus. The fight between the sun god and Set was a very favorite subject with Egyptian writers, and there are many forms of it. Thus, there is the fight between Heru and Set, the fight between Ra and Set, the fight between Heru-Behutet and Set, the fight between Osiris and Set, and the fight between Horus, son of Isis, and Set. In the oldest times, the combat was merely the natural opposition of light to darkness, but later the sun god became the symbol of right and truth as well as the light, and Set the symbol of sin and wickedness as well as of darkness. And ultimately, the nature myth was forgotten, and the fight between the two gods became a type of everlasting war which good men wage against sin. In Coptic literature, we have the well-known legend of the slaughter of the dragon. In Coptic literature, we have the well-known legend of the slaughter of the dragon by St. George. This is nothing but a Christian adaptation of the legend of Horus and Set. After these things, Horus, son of Ra, and Horus, son of Isis, each took the form of a mighty man, with the face and body of a hawk, and each wore the red and white crowns, and each carried a spear and chain. In these forms, the two gods slew the remnant of the enemies. Now, by some means or other, Set came to life again, and he took the form of a mighty hissing or roaring serpent, and hid himself in the ground, in a place which was ever after called the place of the roarer. In front of his hiding place, Horus, son of Isis, stationed himself in the form of a hawk-headed staff to prevent him from coming out. In spite of this, however, Set managed to escape, and he gathered about him the Smai and the Seraphins at the lake of May, and waged war once more against Horus. The enemies of Ra were again defeated, and Horus slew them in the presence of his father. Horus, it seems, now ceased to fight for some time, and devoted himself to keeping guard over the great god, who was in Anrut, a district in the near Heru-Behutet. This is the great god was no other than Osiris, and the duty of Horus was to prevent the Smai fiends summoned to aid Isis to keep away the fiends from the coming by night to the place. And despite of the power of Horus, it was found necessary to keep the summon and the aid to Isis. As a reward for he had always done, Thoth decreed that Horus should be called the Master Fighter. Passing over the derivations of the place names which occur here in the text, we find that Horus and his blacksmiths were again obliged to fight bodies of the enemy who had managed to escape, and that on one occasion they killed 106 foes. In every fight, the blacksmiths performed mighty deeds of valor, and in reward for their services a special district was allotted to them to dwell in. The last great fight in the north took place in Tanis, in the eastern part of the delta. When the position of the enemy had been located, Horus took the form of a lion with the face of a man, and he put his head in a triple crown. His claws were like flints, and with them he dragged away 142 of the enemy, and tore them into pieces, and dug out their tongues, which had carried off as symbols of his victory. Meanwhile, rebellion had again broken in Nubia, where about one-third of the enemy had taken refuge in the river in the forms of crocodiles and hippopotami. Ra consoled Horus to sail up the Nile with blacksmiths, and then Thoth had recited the chapters of protecting the boat of Ra. Over the boats, the expedition set sail for the south. The object of reciting these spells was to prevent the mussels which were in the river from making the waves to rise, from stirring up storms which might engulf the boats of Ra and Horus and the blacksmiths. When the rebels and the fiends who had been uttering treason against Horus saw the boat of Ra, which the winged disc of Horus accompanied by the goddess Heru-Behutet and Nekbet in the form of serpents, they were smitten with fear, and their hearts quaked, and all the power of resistance left them, and they died of fright and straightway. When Horus returned in triumph to Edfu, Ra ordered that the image of the winged disc should be placed in each of the sanctuaries, and that in every place wherein a winged disc was set, the sanctuary should be the sanctuary of Horus the Behutet. The winged discs, which are seen above the doorways of all temples still standing in Egypt, show that the command of Ra was faithfully carried out by the priests. The legend of Heru-Behutet and the winged disc. In the 363rd year of Ra Heru-Behutet, who lived, and forever his majesty was in Takins, and his soldiers were with him. The enemy did not conspire against the Lord, and the land is called Heru-Behutet until this day. And Ra set out on the expedition in his boat, and his followers were with him. And he arrived at Euthes Heru, which lay to the west of this Nome, and to the east of the canal Pakemenu, which is called to this day. And Heru-Behutet was in the boat of Ra, and he said unto his father, Ra Heru-Behutet, Ra Marcus, I see that the enemies are conspiring against the Lord. Let the fiery serpent gain the mastery over them. Then the majesty of Ra Marcus said to the divine Ka, or Heru-Behutet, O son of Ra, thou exalted one, who didst proceed from me, overthrow thy enemies are before thee straightway. And Heru-Behutet flew up in the horizon in the form of the great winged disc, for which the reason he is called Great God, Lord of Heaven, until this day. And when he saw the enemies in the heights of heaven, he set out to follow after them. he set out to follow after them in the form of the great winged disc, and he attacked with such terrific force those who opposed him that they could neither see with their eyes nor hear with their ears. And each of them slew his fellow, and in a moment of time there was not a single creature left alive. Then Heru-Behutet, shining with very many colors, came into the form of the great ring disc to the boat of Ra-Har-Marcus, and Thoth came in the form of the great winged disc to the boat of Ra-Har-Marcus, and said unto Ra, O Lord of gods, Behutet hath returned in the form of the great winged disc, shining with many colors. Children, for this reason he is called Heru-Behutet unto this day. And Thoth said, the city Tel shall be called the city of Heru-Behutet, and thus that is called unto this day. And Ra embraced and Ra, and said unto Heru-Behutet, thou didst put grapes into the water which cometh forth from it, and thy heart rejoiced to it. And for this reason the water or canal of Heru-Behutet is called grape water unto this day. And unto the day Heru-Behutet said, advance, O Ra, and look upon thy enemies. Thereupon the majesty of Ra set out on the way, and the goddess Ashtoreth was with him, and he saw the enemies overthrown on the ground, each one of them being fettered. Then said Ra to Heru-Behutet, there is sweet life in this place. And for this reason above the palace of Heru-Behutet is called sweet life unto this day. And Ra said unto Thoth, here was the slaughter of my enemies, and the place is called Teb unto this day. And Thoth said unto Heru-Behutet, thou art great protector, Maka. And the boat of Heru-Behutet is called Maka unto this day. Then said Ra unto the gods who were in his following, behold now, let us sail in the boat upon the water, for our hearts are glad because of our enemies have been overthrown on the earth. And the water was where the great god cell is called Pekin unto this day. And behold, the enemies of Ra rushed into the water, and they took the forms of crocodiles and hippopotami. And nevertheless, Heru-Behutet sailed over the waters in his boat. And when the crocodiles and the hippopotami had come nigh unto him, they opened wide their jaws in order to destroy Heru-Behutet. And when Heru-Behutet arrived, and his followers who were behind him in the forms of his name, they smote the crocodiles and hippopotami, and there were brought in their straightway 651 crocodiles, which had been slain before the city of Edfu. Then spake Ra-Har-Marcus unto Heru-Behutet, my image shall be here in the land of the south, which is the house of victory or strength, and the house of Heru-Behutet is called Nekhit unto this day. Then the god Thoth spake, after he had looked upon the enemies lying upon the ground, saying, let your hearts rejoice, O ye gods of heaven. Let your hearts rejoice, O you gods on earth. Horus, the youthful one, cometh in peace, and he hath made manifest of his journey deeds of very great might, which he hath performed according to the book of the slain hippopotamus. And from that day, figures of Heru-Behutet in the metal have existed. Then Heru-Behutet took upon himself the form of the winged disc, and he placed himself up in the front of the boat of Ea, and he placed by his side the god of Nekhbet and the goddess Heru-Behutet in the form of two serpents, that they might make the enemies quake in all their limbs when they were in the forms of crocodiles and the hippopotami, in every place wherein became came in the land of the south and in the land of the north. Then those enemies rose up to make their escape from before him, and the face was towards the land of the south, and the horse was stricken down through him, and Heru-Behutet was at the back or side of them in the boat of Ra. And there were in his hands the metal lance and the metal chain, and in the metal workers who were with them the Lord equipped to fighting with the lances and chains. And Heru-Behutet saw them to the south on the east of the city of Uz, Thebes, some distance away. Then Ra said to Thoth, "Those enemies shall be smitten with the blows that kill." And Thoth said to Ra, "That place is called the city Tekmet until this day." And Heru-Behutet made a great overthrow among them, and Ra said, "Stand still, O Heru-Behutet." And the place is called Het-Ra to this day. And the God dwelleth therein, Heru-Behutet Ra Asmu, or men. Then those enemies rose up to make their escape from before him, and the face of the God was towards the land of the north, and the horse was stricken through of fear for them. And Heru-Behutet at the back or the side of them in the boat of Ra, and those were following him had spears and metal and chains, metal in their hands, and God himself was equipped for the battle with the weapons of the metal workers which they had with them. And he passed a whole day before he saw them on the northeast of the son of Tentiar, Dindra. Then Ra said unto Thoth, "These enemies are resting. The Lord and the majesty of Ra Marcus said to Heru-Behutet, Thou art exalted, son. Who didst proceed from Nut? The courage of the enemies hath failed in the moment." And Heru-Behutet made a great slaughter among them. And Thoth said, "The winged dish shall be called in the name of Ayat, and is called Heru-Behutet and mistress. His name is to the south in the name of this God. And the acacia and the sycamore shall be the trees of the sanctuary." Then the enemies turned aside to flee from before him, and their faces were towards the north, and they went to the swamps of Heru-Behutet and the Mediterranean, and their courage fell through fear of him. And Heru-Behutet was back at the side of them in the boat of Ra, and the metal spear was in his hands. And those who were in the following were equipped with the weapons for battle of metal workers. And the gods spent 4 days and 4 nights in the water in pursuit of them, but he did not see one of the enemies who fled before him in the water in the forms of crocodiles and hippopotamus. At the length he found them and saw them, and Ra said unto Horus of Haben, "O winged disk, thou great God, O Lord of heaven, seest thou them?" And he hurled them in the lance after them, and he slew them, and worked a great overthrow of them. And he brought 142 enemies to the forepart of the boat of Ra, and with them was a pale hippopotamus, which had been among those enemies, and he hacked them to pieces with his knife, and he gave the entrails to those who were in the following, and he gave their carcasses to the gods and the goddesses who were in the boat of Ra on the river bank of the city of Ben. Then Ra said unto Thoth, "See what mighty things Heru-Behutet has performed in the deeds against the enemies. Verily, have smitten them, and of the male hippopotamus he has opened the mouth, and he hath spirited, and he hath mounted upon his back." Then said Thoth to Ra, "Horus shall be called Wingdis, great God, smite of the enemies in the town of Heben. From this day forward he shall be called He who standeth on the back, and prophet of the God from this day forward." These are the things which had happened in the lands of city of Haben, in a region which measured 342 measures of the south, and on the north, on the west, and on the east. The enemies rose before him by the lake of the north, and their faces were set towards Yoktor, which they desired to reach by sailing. But the gods smote their hearts, and they turned and fled in the waters. And they directed the course to the water of the nome of Mertet Ament, and they gathered themselves together in the water of Mertet, in order to join themselves with the enemies who served Set, and whose in the great region of Heru-Behutet followed them, being equipped with all his weapons of war to fight against them. And Heru-Behutet made a journey in the boat of Ra, together with the great god who was in the boat with those who were his followers, and pursued them on the lake of the north twice, and passed one day and one night sailing down the river, and pursued them before they perceived, and overtook them, for he knew not the place where they were. Then he arrived in the city of Peruhu, and the majesty of Ra said unto Heru-Behutet, "What has happened to the enemies? They have gathered together themselves in the water to the west of the nome of Mertet, in order to unite themselves with the enemies who serve Set, who are this region, at the place where are staff and sceptre." And Thou said unto Ra, the nome of Mertet is called Usel, because unto this day the lake which he is called Tempt. Then Heru-Behutet spake in presence of the father Ra, saying, "I beseech thee to set the boat against them, so that I may be able to perform against them with which Ra willeth." And this was done. Then he made an attack upon the lake which was set to the west of this district, and perceived them on the bank of the city, which belongeth to the lake of Mertet. Then Heru-Behutet made an expedition against them, and his followers were with them, and they were provided with weapons of all kinds for battle. And he wrought great overthrow among them, and he brought into the 381 enemies, and he slaughtered them in the forepart of the boat of Ra, and he gave one of them to each of those that were in his train. Then Set rose up and came forth, and raged loudly with words of cursing and abuse, because of the things Heru-Behutet had done in respect of the slaughter of the enemies. And Ra said unto Thoth, "This fiend Heru-Behutet is uttered the words to the top of his voice, because the things of Heru-Behutet has done unto him." And Thoth said unto Ra, "Cries of this kind shall be called Nehu-Harara until this day." And Heru-Behutet did the battle of the enemy for the period of time, and he hurled iron lance at him, and he overthrew him down to the ground into the region which is called Heru-Behutet. Until this day, Heru-Behutet came and brought the enemy with him, and his spear was in the neck, and his chain was around his hands and arms, and the weapons of Horus had fallen on his mouth, and had closed it, and he was went with them before the Ra, his father, who said, "O Horus, thou wingedest twice great, utterly untenting the deed of valor which thou hast done, and thou hast cleansed the district." And Ra said unto Thoth, "The place of Heru-Behutet should be called the Lord of the district, which is cleansed by of this." And thus it is called until this day. And the name of the priest thereof is called Tintin until this day. And Ra said unto Thoth, "Let the enemies be set be given over to Isis and her son Horus, and let them work with all their heart's desire upon them." And she saw her son Horus set themselves in position with spears at him at the time, and there was a storm or disaster in the district of Isis, cut the head off the enemy Set, and the heads off his fiends in the presence of the father Ra over the great company of the gods. And he dragged him by his feet and threw him some Egyptian little necklace or some type of tattoo, this one's dedicated to y'all. Always remember how beautiful and how powerful you are.